Welcome to the Stockbridge Selectmen's meeting of April 15th, 2021. I'm going to start off with Patrick reading a proclamation.
We ready? All right. This is a proclamation recognizing the 100th birthday of David Resnick. Whereas longevity of life is a blessing for an individual and for a community which benefits from the knowledge, creativity, and experiences this individual brings to all. And whereas the town of Stockbridge recognizes with respect and admiration the contribution of senior citizens to our community. And whereas Mr. Resnick was born in Liverpool, England on April 17th, 1921, and emigrated to the US at the age of 11. A World War II veteran, David served in the 36th Combat Engineers from 1943 to 45, fighting in the invasions of North Africa and Italy and continuing through southern France into Germany. And whereas Mr. Resnick and his wife, Elizabeth Gellhorn Resnick, who he married in 1947, moved to Stockbridge in 1957, where they raised their 4 children who were educated in area schools. The two attended nearly every town meeting, and many friends look forward to seeing Dave on his long post-retirement walks. After a lifetime of service to his family, to people in need, and to the art of writing, Dave still enjoys every day. Whereas the United States has the greatest number of centenarians in the world, and on April 17th, 2021, Mr. Resnick should be honored for these 100 years on this earth, and now therefore be it proclaimed that Ernest Cardillo, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and on behalf of the town of Stockbridge and the citizens of Stockbridge, honor David Resnick for his life, a long life and prosperity, and wish him many more. The 17th day of April, 2021, Stockbridge Board of Selectmen, and maybe Roxanne could sign.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Take action on the meeting minutes for March 25th and April 1st. I make a motion, we accept those minutes.
I sent in to Teresa a couple of corrections for the 25th, but other than that,
Accept with
Second.
corrections?
it's minor.
No, I said I'm motion to accept with corrections.
Okay, yeah,
So I'll second that motion.
okay.
All those in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
Aye. Take action on town election warrants. We got Mike.
Yep, so we have the town election warrant. Setting positions, dates, times, and the rest. That's so the board just needs to approve it and set the dates. And we're off and running as far as elections, so. Do you typically read it out at a meeting or just,
I don't believe so. This is,
normally,
all right? So you just then, you need a vote to approve the warrant.
I'll make a motion that we approve the warrant.
I'll second.
Wait. We're not putting it up?
No, this is a warrant for the elections.
Oh,
Yeah, the town meeting. No, those are not the articles, Patrick, no.
A second,
I second it.
all those in favor?
all right.
Hi,
The board has to approve the next one.
Take action on early in-person voting, May 8th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
That's a recommendation from your town clerk for early voting.
Are we doing mail-in voting?
There's still other options for voting that Terry can, from absentee to, different setups. So I can find out exactly all the options, bring them back at the next meeting.
I was just curious.
Council.
Yeah.
But,
It's all normal.
if you want to have in-person, early in-person voting, you have to establish the hours.
All right.
So she's proposing to do it the Saturday, the May 8th.
I started to put it on.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the town clerk to do early in-person voting on May 8th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I'll second.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's up early.
Project updates.
So the project updates, Evercrow Bridge has been bid contracted and is out. Raymakers is the company that's going to be doing it. It's once again came in, as I stated before, on budget. We've now contracted with them. With all the firing up of construction, the rest. So for the Averitt Road Bridge, they will begin mobilizing and demolishing the bridge, demolition of the bridge during August into September, with the bridge being installed in October and then done by the end of October. So it'll be
Great.
2 months to 2.5 month process of getting that bridge out, a new bridge installed, and going from there. So that'll be stage one. Once we clear up one of these,
In the last page.
and we clear up a couple of these projects, the plan is to apply for another small municipal grant in order to do the second Averitt Road Bridge and then get that open back up. So that's the plan with the Averitt Road Bridge. The Larry Wog, which is probably one that people are most concerned about, the bids are due next Tuesday. So we'll be opening the bids on them. We have a timeline with substantial completion dates set as October 31st. So every attempt is being made to get this project in this construction season and get it done. So I will definitely have more on this. It'll be placed on the agenda for the 22nd meeting, because when we go to open those bids, to get this project awarded and moving forward, we're going to be as aggressive as we can.
Yeah.
So Curtisville Bridge has been moving along very well. This is the utility bridge. So it's most of the footings, everything else for the bridge have been installed. The piping's across there. Soon they'll be disconnecting the piping in the roads and then reattaching them to the new span. But this will bring up the question of now, where do we go? And we need to start beginning some serious discussions on the Curtisville Bridge itself. Getting utilities off of it will be a help with whatever was decided to do with that bridge, because now you can move on that bridge with the utilities off of it. And then,
Can you talk about the pedestrian issues?
well, the bridge itself is supposed to be closed. So it's supposed to be closed to all traffic. So one of the concerns that we do have around this bridge is making sure that the bridge is secured and that traffic from pedestrian to bikes to cars to everything else are supposed to be not on that structure. So we need to look at that going forward. But the biggest issue is coming up with a plan of what's going to happen with the Curtisville Bridge. And then if the bridge was to be rebuilt in some way, whatever the town decides, we would then be able to restore the utilities back under the whatever
We can borrow
structure.
that modular bridge Greg Barrington's buying, and put it there.
Yeah.
And they're done with it.
Yeah, yep. You used modular bridges before, right?
It's nice paper.
Temporary, but they're basically temporary so that you have a plan to do something with the bridge. So that will be a discussion coming up. Main Street intersection. So that's going to come up as a warrant article, but also we've spoken to our engineers, myself, Roxanne, and they're going to do a proposal at the end of the month to a joint meeting of the Select Board and Finance Committee. And then we can look at the project, then make a decision about moving that article forward. And then the plan would be to have another meeting, a public meeting prior to town meeting, with them presenting again our engineers about this project. So I wasn't sure, Roxanne, if you want to say anything more about it.
Right, well, obviously, anyone can attend that joint meeting, but in addition, we were planning on a public presentation in general for the public, so you would all understand exactly what's being proposed.
Okay.
Yep. And then the highway garage. So the highway garage roof is almost completely done. Our crews were able to work all winter out of our new highway garage, but we did have to take one of the bays to keep some of the material in order for them to work. So now we'll move on to just punch list items and then close this project out. A project that was a long time in the works.
And are they gonna look at the steps on the swap shop kind of?
Yeah, we need to, so that's already been identified to be hit up. So we have the ADA self-assessment and transition plan, which I want them, they'll be doing over the next few weeks, coming in and looking at it. And one of the areas to look at, we'll be looking at that, figuring out our steps and entrance to that.
Yeah.
And then just getting that back up and working. So we're moving on it. I know Hugh's already identified like a lot of stuff all around there of stuff that needs to get cleared out,
Right.
removed. We'll be bringing those items forward for the board to declare surplus for some of the smaller items.
Them a while ago too, and I mean, that was all supposed to be done quite a while ago,
Yeah,
and it hasn't been done.
it hasn't.
It has to be done.
Right. I mean, there's an old harvester. Does it have any?
Stop by.
Right, does it have any value? If they don't have value, some of it is just scrapping it for the metal value and just getting it out of there.
Has to be
So
done.
Hugh has already he's already working, he's got me photos, he's organizing the stuff together and that, so we'll be bringing it to the select board. The select board has to declare items surplus for us to dispose of. And then depending on what the value is, we can either scrap them as surplus, say for some of the,
Maybe we could create a museum of old harvesters. We have so many of them.
yeah.
I believe all that was declared surplus at one point.
We're not sure what was or wasn't, so I think the safer bet is to
Do it again, yeah, but it was just.
just start over, declare them surplus. Depending on the value, some things may have to be, auctioned off or things the town has done in the past. So we'll look at it. Right now, it's trying to come up with what's the value now of these. We've got an old army truck down there. Does it have any value? Doesn't it?
Might have more value as scrap.
It might have more value as just scrap.
Perhaps going up.
Just one question, this ADA assessment?
Yep.
Is that connected to the people that were surveying on Main Street yesterday? There were surveyors out there yesterday, and I forgot to ask you yesterday morning.
Oh,
Anyway.
if it was,
No.
I wasn't sure. So it's Berkshire Regional Planning is doing our ADA self-assessment. It was originally part of the rehabilitation grant we had through CDBG.
Right.
But because we were able to get a separate Mass Commission on Disability grant, they were able to pull it out, which also allowed some more additional funds to be available for the rehabilitation program. So it was a win-win. And they'll be pulling that together and that they'll be making a presentation to this board once they've done their initial draft and then.
And that
we'll-
was an additional 40,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any comments out there about anything we talked about yet? Okay. Review and approve intermunicipal transportation agreement.
What we have is that we have the towns of number of towns that have gone together on an intermunicipal agreement in order to provide transportation to seniors and people with disabilities. I think this is a good program. Our vehicle currently hasn't been used. It sits out there. Right now, our contribution for the next 3 years would just be the use of our van. So there's no upfront cost to the town as far as the operation of this, but we are supplying a vehicle as part of this program. This gives another option, because there are a bunch of options people could take advantage of from BRTA as programs, and different areas of the town have different transportation. I believe they have vans. Heaton Court has vans that are used and stuff. This would just be another option for our residents to have. So the big thing is that there is a price schedule here. So, for within the communities and trips, not to Pittsfield, it's a $10 round. It's $10 and it's round trip. Spouses that are going to the same stops, caregivers and spouse, there's no additional charge. So if it was a couple going, it'd be $10. So for example, going to Big Y, you go to Big Y, shop, come out, they bring you home. So it can be for Pittsfield, just because going in Pittsfield and the time that the van would be in service for that would be $15. But that once again is a round trip cost.
It's nothing.
So I think this is a good option. It puts our van into use and just gives another option for people to get transportation if needed, in, South County. So,
I read it. I'm happy with it.
Mhm.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll make a motion that we agree to this agreement.
Right, I'll second.
All those in favor?
I agree to agree to the agreement.
Agreed,
Yes.
Patrick?
Aye.
Aye. I think this is a great thing.
Yeah, good job.
Thank
Need
you,
to
Mike.
sign?
yes,
This one, or you got original, this one?
I can send, that, I mean, either of them are fine. They're all the same.
All right.
Chairman signs.
Yep, the chairman on page 5. Yep.
Discussion on forestry management grant.
Yeah, so, so the state makes about anywhere, I think there's a formula based on the lot size. And every individual lot, can apply for, the owner of the lot, whether it's municipal or private, can apply for a grant to have a licensed forester come out and write a plan for that plot. And, some of the grants that we might want to get to help us offset the cost of treating the trees at Ice Glen require a forest management plan. So I'd like to kind of put that in place while we also have the guy doing the assessment up there. And, it's literally a form on the DCR website. We fill it out, we get $1,000 or something like that. And some local forester comes in and writes a grant. So I think obviously to Roxanne's earlier point this year, that we need to have a more measured approach to developing these plans throughout town on town-owned properties. But for now, it's just important so that we can access as many grants as possible on the Ice Glen project to put this one in place. So I'm happy to enable us to look at grants for, forest management plan grants for any parcels you guys want.
Well, I mean, what's the question here? Is the question, we should be doing a forest management program for Ice Glen for that area of town property, number one?
Yeah, I can't apply I'm not applying for grants without us talking about it first. That's mostly what we're talking about.
Right. On the other hand, when we apply for grants, they need to come into the select board. We need to discuss them and then move forward with them so that we understand what the requirements are. So the public understands.
Yeah, I mean, on this one specifically, it's literally like a 3-sentence, 1-page form that identifies the parcel. And you ask the state to give you money for a forester to come in and write the plan.
But from what you just said, I thought you said you have to have a forest management plan in place to apply for these grants.
Well, there's some that require a forest management plan. So I'm just anticipating if we want to apply for as many grants as we can for Ice Glen down the road, that this is basically kind of a precursor that's required, but
Well, I mean, my whole thought is, I think it certainly makes sense that we have a forest management plan for town-owned land. And I think the focus right now is obvious that it's Ice Glen.
Yeah.
We already have a forest management plan engaged in by Sewer and Water.
oh yeah, I'm not talking about.
I would think that we should probably be consistent and maybe use the same forester.
Yeah, they give you, as long as they're licensed, I think that you have an option.
Obviously, they're licensed, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would make sense and we look at that. In terms of specific grants, I think we should all just get the information about the grants so that we can look at what the various options are and what the requirements of each one is. The
Yeah.
first step is to enter into,
And for the larger grants for actually doing work on the parcels, that's not what we're talking about here. We're literally talking about a standard state program where they give you about $1,000 so that a forester can come out and say, here's what you need to do on this one. And I don't care if we use the Lake Averick forester or not. It's literally a checkbox to give us the right to apply for grants.
okay, well, Mike, have you seen the grant that he's talking about?
It's just a simple application. that
Okay,
Patrick sent over.
is it required that you have to have a lake or a forest management plan in place?
This would do the forest
This,
management plan.
this is a planning grant that allows you to get the forest management plan in place, so then you can go after the substantial grants.
Okay,
So
all right.
That's good.
this would just authorize us to begin the process of applying for it, and it would still come back for this board for acceptance, but.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that clarifies it. I guess I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, it's okay.
I was misunderstanding what you were saying. Okay,
Sometimes it's early. I forgot my mask. I had to get one. I couldn't go get a coffee. Sorry.
So do we need to vote on this and just give them?
Well, there's no technical vote. I think this was more of just information. I'm gonna now work with Patrick on pursuing this, and then it'll come back to the board, but
Okay.
this is the right step to first
Yeah.
get it before you guys and know what we're going
Right.
toward.
yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
If you can send the link or give the link to Mike and we can take a look at.
And then I got us a grant to put an airport in, you know.
Good. My house will take it.
This one.
Any comments on anything in the public for this? Okay, thank you. Review and approve warrant articles. Capital.
Right, so we're building toward town meeting. So we still have a number of articles, especially bylaws, but right now want to get one part of this done. And that was, we've had our joint meetings with the finance committee. We've had the rest. Now we have, these are all the ones that are involve money. So all of our capital, the CPC ones, and then the borrowings if we were to do it. So I'm gonna throw up on the screen appropriations. Let's make. All right, so these are appropriations from free cash that have been discussed at our various meetings. So the first one is the vote to appropriate a sum of $40,000 from free cash for contracting services to provide part-time professional assistance to the town of Stockbridge Planning Board or take any other action in relation thereto. So if we're gonna, approve these, we can go through them all, and then you could approve the slate or pull them out afterwards, or we can go through them individually. Would you like me to just go through all of them and then we can go back to any one that? All right. The other one is 35,000. I'm going to summarize them. 35,000 available from free cash for the purpose of water testing consultants for the Stockbridge Bowl. $50,000 to fund our other post-retirement benefit trust. 35,000. This one is long, but it ties into the rest of the river legal fees. But we basically state this article so that any leftover money in previous years can be used in addition with this. $30,000 from free cash for the purpose of tree monitoring and treatment of Ice Glen. $8,000 for the Regional School District Planning Board and its study. $95,000 for maintenance and upgrade to the town's tennis and basketball courts. $15,000.
So we heard about just the ones over here?
No, all of them.
No, all four.
Okay.
Uh,
Not the ones at Riggs. We don't own those, right?
yeah, those are, yes, that's part of it.
Release those.
At
The,
least those.
the land, yeah, the land has been turned over to the town for recreational use.
Okay.
And we agree to maintain it and they allow town.
Yeah, we're getting all four done.
Okay. To see if the town will vote, raise 15,000 for hiring a lighting consultant, and that was part of the street light one. And then 20,000 out of the cemetery trust fund for the purposes of hiring consultants to evaluate the restoration of the old stones within the cemetery. From available sewer surplus, we have $12,000 for an underground camera. We have $38,000 for the water operation reserve fund for the Tuckerman Bridge engineering. $3,690 for funding inspections and cleaning of the Quiet Knoll water storage tanks. And then we have an article that we have to make up from last year. We did not have a vote to pay the debt service for the sewer and water expansion update. That was done in 2002. That was left off the warrant. So it's something that we have to clean up here at the end of the year. So it's actually, you're allowed on your warrant to take care of business in the current and coming fiscal year. So this will have to be on the article. And then the article for this year's payment for the sewer system expansion and update project. So those two would be done. The money was planned to be done anyways. It was just not left. So legally, Ray cannot transfer the money without a vote of town meeting. So those are all of the capital items that we have that are coming from various sources, don't include borrowing or anything else, but either coming from free cash, water and sewer surplus, or the cemetery trust fund.
We talked yesterday about the cemetery fence post replacements and that you had the cost for that.
Yes,
Is that going to go in here as well?
no, we're gonna take that out of this year's operating budget.
Okay.
Any questions, Patrick?
Yeah, I want to talk about.
Planning board one. Okay,
Sure,
Let's go right back to the top.
right to the top.
So we talked about a planning board, select board meeting to talk about what the priorities were for next year. You know, are we gonna do that before we approve 40 grand for article number 1?
Well, I think Bill is here and I'm just wondering if Bill can elaborate on what the use of that $40,000 would be, if he can break it down.
Well, we know it's 25 for Phil and 15 for,
Is
How did
that
Bill
staying
work?
the same is the question.
Yes.
And how much has been expended of the 40,000 that was already appropriated?
I don't have that figure at hand. I don't think it's even 50% yet because we kind of got a late start with Phil Arnold from Berkshire Regional Planning. But he's hard at work on a bunch of bylaws and has been. I'm not sure about a joint select board planning board meeting to talk about this particular item, although I know that questions have been asked. As Michael said, the breakdown is 15 for what we think may be is likely to be the need to continue to work with Jeff Lacey, the consultant on the open space bylaw that we're working on, into the new fiscal year, and then 25 for the Berkshire Regional Planning professional planner. I think the planning board would agree. I believe I can speak for the planning board, would agree unanimously that he has been a big help to the work of the planning board. He's even though he's young, he's an experienced professional, and he's a professional, unlike anybody else on the planning board. So we found him very useful. Looking to the next fiscal year, I think there is a need to review all the zoning bylaws, or most of them, to ensure compliance with current state law. I don't know how.
Did that.
Sorry?
Bill, hold on one second, Bill. We did that. We spent $16,000 with Joel to do a diagnostic report.
Yeah,
And he said that there weren't major changes. Then I had Michael review them, and then I had Donna review them. And nobody is saying that we need to do a top-down evaluation of our bylaws because of some question of state law. And I don't know why you guys keep saying that when everybody's telling us that's not the fact.
Well, Patrick, I haven't heard that from Donna. I'm not questioning what you're saying, but that's new to me. I'm not saying that the bylaws need to be rewritten. That was never my intent. I have always understood, though, that there were tweaks that needed to be made that weren't going to get us in deep trouble because we were out of compliance, but that while we're looking at bylaws and writing new bylaws, we should be sure that the ones we've got on the books are good. I don't want to make work for a planning consultant if that's not necessary. You know, it's very hard to forecast what a professional planning consultant will do in a year's time. we do know that he has been extremely useful this year. We do know that having a professional at hand and available when questions arise or particular projects arise, that we can go to him and get professional advice and assistance. Without it, would the planning board fall apart? No, but I think that having the capacity to use him and not necessarily to spend all $25,000 if we're not if we don't need to is a benefit for the planning board and frankly for the town.
No, I like Phil. I support Phil. I just want to know what Phil's going to work on. And I think it's a reasonable question to give to the voters before we ask him to spend $25,000 on Phil. So all you guys have to do is give us a list of what your priorities are for next year so that we can talk about it. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not opposing Phil. I think Phil did good work. There's really kind of two issues. One, I think that on some of the larger questions, who the permitting authority is, on parking, I would rather the general parameters of where we're going on some of this stuff be agreed on between our boards, because I don't want to have dueling bylaws, that are, one written by you, one written by us. Last night, Chuck, you said that you felt that cottage era stuff should stay with the select board at that forum, and frankly, I think we should have that discussion before we appropriate $15,000 to keep working on the cottage era, because I don't want to get to a situation where we have a finished bylaw and this board doesn't agree with the direction of the bylaw. And I'm not saying it has to stay with us. All I'm saying is that I want to talk about it before we appropriate the money, or else we're all going to look like idiots when we disagree at the end of the day with what you guys come up with, if that were the case. So I just kind of want to have a conversation first. And it doesn't have to be in one direction, or the other direction. I just want to know the general direction that we're going in with this stuff. And I think that's a reasonable request.
Well, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask Bill to come up with a list for the planning board, to just come up with a list of what the upcoming priorities would be for the use of these consultants. And other than that, I think we're going beyond the agenda item in terms of the discussion. We have to.
Well, okay, but 15,000 of the appropriation is to work on cottage area revisions. So if you guys, the top of the line question on that one is read the draft, the permitting authority switches from us to them. And if you guys are okay with that, that's fine. But, I don't understand how we're going through these processes to get to a point where, where we haven't even figured out like where the basic general direction of these things are going in.
Right.
As a team.
I think on these big ones like the cottage area bylaw, that we should be updated frequently on where they're at, so we can look at it and say, make changes or.
Well, I think having joint meetings makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I think we need a joint meeting.
Discussion at that point in time. My whole point is our agenda today is to go through these items for the warrant. So you're kind of getting a little off topic.
But why
I
don't-
agree with having
Why
joint.
don't we
meetings.
hold off on this article until we have a joint meeting and discuss it?
All right, so you want to set this one?
Let's put this one on the sideline. Have a joint meeting. Let's get a system in place where and these big ones that we're updated more often and we're part of the discussion. So that when they don't, the planning board's doing a great job. I'm not saying anything against the planning board, but when it comes to the end and we go through it and say, well, this and this, we would like to modify, that is done in the process and not just at the end. Is that something we can do, Bill, or?
Yes, yeah, if
I think we should be doing that.
we can have a joint meeting and talk about this for sure.
Yeah, and as things develop during the year, I think we should have joint meetings. This is to see where you are and update us and update the public. I think would be a great way to keep, things open and open to discussion. Because I know you're doing a lot of hard work. I appreciate everything the planning board is doing. It's not nothing personal against the planning board. We don't want to come across that way. But I think we, select board and the public should be updated more frequently on these big issues. And that way there, when it comes to the end, the agreement's pretty much there already. And there won't be any major issues. Is that correct, what we're trying to get to?
Yeah, I think it'll avoid some miscommunication or
Yeah.
misunderstanding, and we can actually have an open dialogue about a lot of these things that we're concerned about.
And I think we're doing this with a lot of the boards too, not just the planning board.
Right.
So we gotta get more involved in the process as it goes. Not to interfere, but just to
Be aware.
be aware and keep an open dialogue.
Yep, I get it.
Every board.
Can I just say that as an update, so you understand where we are with the open space residential design natural resource preservation bylaw, that we have now changed our focus at the planning board and are just dealing with the open space part of the bylaw. We've pretty much finished that draft and are ready to start the public dialogue on its provisions. When that is done, we're going to move into the cottage era estate, however we want to describe the historic properties on this potential open space. But at this point, we're separating the two issues to make it clearer, to really make the bylaw streamlined. And I think you're going to be very happy with the draft that we went through last night. The issue of who does subdivision permits is in Mass General Law, and subdivisions are reviewed by the planning board according to Mass General Law. When we're talking about issues where the bylaws are out of date, there were 2016 amendments to the state laws that changed. They're not huge amendments, but they give more options to the town. Those have not been reviewed for whether or not they want to be included in the bylaw. And then, as you all know, in the economic development bill that was passed in January of 2020, there were another set of issues for planning boards to look at, and those include voting at town meeting, because some issues like accessory dwelling units, if they're a certain size, now can be passed by 50% rather than a 2/3 majority.
Okay,
All right.
Next article.
yes.
Let's have,
You okay with that one?
Yep.
Okay.
you said there were a couple, Patrick. Do you know which ones?
No, just, why don't we have to vote on all of them, or do you want to vote on?
Well, we could make a motion to move all these forward to the town meeting with the exception of the
The first one.
planning board, which will be done after a joint.
Said he had a something.
My question was, just, you're sure the 20,000 is enough for the cemetery consultant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, she actually has proposals already, and they were 17, and I think they were 15 and 17, so we're asking for 20 to have some additional
Okay.
funds to cover it, yes.
Okay, so you all set, Pat?
Yeah, I think.
I'll make a
just
motion.
Scroll through the rest of them. Just,
Sure. I hate when it
keep
jumps.
going. Yep. Oh, on the basketball courts, are we doing everything, including the nets? The nets look really ratty.
The nets we can fix right now.
Okay, good.
There. That's
It's the courts, it's the blacktop, it's the fencing,
Fencing.
fencing.
it's anything that needs fixing.
A lot of Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, I think that all the rest of them was good.
Okay, so I'll make a motion. We approve these articles, go on the warrant, exception of the first article that after a joint meeting with the planning board. Then we'll place it then. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Glasses on. Operating,
So with the operating, I did pull that because I am still waiting for some information on the ambulance. That's really the last piece that we're waiting on. So I will place this on the meeting for the next meeting, the 22nd. So,
CPC,
so using the spreadsheet that was sent over and the information from the meetings for all the different articles for CPC, there was a 34,000 for the community housing purposes for the Stockbridge Housing Authority to replace wood sidings on a number of the buildings. $5,000 for heat and court for the restoration of the sign. $7,270 for the historic purposes for the preservation of the Frederick Macnam Young Fawn Heron Bronze statue. $10,000 for the Stockbridge Library to go toward their HVAC system.
That's on top of the 100 that we gave them out of COVID.
So, yep. 15,000 for the Berkshire Theater Festival, the replacement of siding and trim on the Mellon Barn. 11,750 for the Friends of Gould Meadow. 60,000 for the historic restoration of the Civil War Monument. That's the next phase. Our initial work's been done on that, but that would allow us to do phase. And 25,000 for the concrete basin of the cat and dog fountain. We're gonna have to reseal that and became a little bit more of a project. That one is moving ahead very well as far as the restoration of the actual statue itself.
Will the cat and dog fountain not be in service this year?
If everything's still timed, we're still hoping to have it back in the spring.
Okay,
So, yeah. $5,000 for some of the concrete work that we're gonna need done on the horse watering trough. $20,000 for the Stockbridge Muncie community for GIS mapping and deed preparation for the assessment of the field repertorium. 75,000 for use of pine woods for reconstruction of the driveway. It's always jumps, sorry. 33,000 for the ADA component of Riverbrook to complete the bathrooms and elevators. Riverbrook has two here because they had to be separated because they're coming out of two different funds. One is for housing, community housing, and then the other one's historic, which is the installation, 17,000 for the installation of the sprinkler system.
As an aside, did we decide what to do with the Riverbrook check?
well, you can see here, no, we did not see here that getting $50,000 from the CPC.
15,000 for use of re-roofing of the property at 17 Willard Hill Road under the historic preservation.
Wait, go back to that one? We didn't approve that one. That's a mistake. We did not approve that one.
What's this for?
Right, let's pull that one off. That was on the spreadsheet,
It may be, but it wasn't approved.
wasn't it?
private residence,
Just check, but I'm
Good.
quite certain it wasn't approved.
Good, because I was gonna say what?
that's a private residence.
It's a private residence.
Private
We didn't approve
residence.
it. And it required some kind of a historic
Right, that was-
restriction and.
Right, that was in the spreadsheet note, because you'll see that it's in this article. That provided, however, that such appropriation shall be
Yeah,
contingent
but the,
on development and historic
Right.
approval of a historic preservation restriction on the property.
yeah, the owner didn't show up and wouldn't, and so there was no way to get a commitment and but we didn't have enough money to do that one.
Right.
That
All
one
right.
was not approved.
A question number two.
Was that a test?
Let's see if the town, $100,000 for the community housing, a housing trust. $10,000 to be moved into the administrative budget that you do every year for your FY '22 appropriation. And then the last article is just an article that we have to place in to meet compliance with Mass General Law 44B, Section 6, but actually, we just have to designate amounts in the minimum requirement based on what we get. So those are the articles for the CPC, and I will confirm. We'll touch base on this one and that, because I
There
know
were some monies that we're putting back into the undesignated buckets or trusts, whatever, the sections. Are we gonna vote on those too? Because I think that has to happen at town meeting.
all right.
Basically, it's like kind of all the old miscellaneous stuff that people didn't spend their entire grant. You know, it's kind of putting it back in because this was significantly more than, you know, what the total, year-to-year total was. So,
Right. We need a town meeting vote to restore those.
yeah, I guess it's like, you know, I think it has to go back into the, undesignated, or I don't know what the term is, Donna knows.
Undesignated.
And on this very first one also, I'm assuming this is the Stockbridge Housing Authority, 34,000 for wood siding on buildings A, C, D, E, et cetera. I'm assuming that's Heaton Court. Is that correct?
Yes, that is Heaton Court.
You might want to add Heaton Court,
All right,
because I think that plenty of members of the public
We
might
have
have
another one.
question.
all right,
And then it's
I
just
think number
clear.
2 is Heaton Court too, isn't it?
yeah.
The sign.
Looking back, I know that you've had them in the past and it's been the Stockbridge Housing Authority.
Yeah,
Is Heaton Court the real, or is it officially the Stockbridge Housing Authority?
yeah.
It's actually.
Put in parentheses.
That's the location, but you're mentioning it for the sign. So what's the point? Might as well mention
Oh, all right.
also for the buildings.
Yep,
Any question from
Make those-
on this?
I can make those changes. I'll add that.
And Heaton Court should be capitalized, just so you know.
Oh, the word court needs to capitalize for it.
Yeah,
Last line. Article
this is the
2.
name of the property. That's all that.
That change was made and I'll add Heaton.
And the other one we're skipping?
Good.
I'll make a motion that we put the
Second.
articles on the warrant,
Um,
minus the,
With the
that one.
removal of the 17 Willard Hill Road.
I'll second.
Favor? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Boring.
All right.
Are we good? We skipped that one, right?
Yep. So the first article is the authorization to borrow $60,000 to pay for the Chime Tower.
600 though.
600.
600.
You're right, it's early.
The coffee's gone.
And authorizing the treasurer, and this is just the language that also, there's a little additional language in here, which is actually the new language that allows you to take any premiums you receive and pay down the total amount that you would end up borrowing. It was originally 550,000, but because most of this work won't be happening until the fall and over the winter, we've seen already a price escalation. So we wanted to make sure that we had the funds to cover. There's still some decisions that need to be made, finalized between with the historical commission and individuals for playing of the tower, whether or not additional bells will be added or not. But that's really not a decision. You guys are appropriating that we have the funds. The 600,000 will allow us to do everything. And then if some items aren't done, then
Now, how do you
able.
envision making the great bells versus, history versus music decision?
Ultimately, it'll probably be the decision of the historical commission for this.
Okay.
The original intent and the changing of the building from its historical. So the question is to add additional bells in order.
Or
to
maybe
make
take one out.
all note,
Take that 70s bell out.
and then possibly take a bell that was just added that's not the original one. So that's really, I think, the only real question around this project. So.
Not bad.
But this would allow us to move forward, get the original bells restored. And the main thing is that the main structural beam across the top that's holding tons of weight of bells. If we don't do it, the Chime Tower is gonna have to be closed to the public, even people playing it, because it's not gonna be safe. So this allows us to begin the restoration. Recommending a borrowing, as I've stated before, because this is a project when completed is a 50+ year project as far as having to go back to this building.
Good.
The next article is, and this is the, right now I have in the maximum amount, 960 for the intersection. At this point, I'm gonna recommend, me and Roxanne have discussed this about pushing this off till we have a joint meeting with the finance committee and have VHB come in and do an actual presentation of it. And then at that joint meeting, the select board and finance committee could then decide if they want to, well, you guys have the decision, the A, first a vote of the select board to place it on the warrant, and then a B of a vote of the finance committee to support it or not.
Would you mind if we spent maybe half an hour between now and then, just so you can explain to me what the outline of this is? I'd rather not see it for the first time, at the meeting, just,
Yeah, we can sit down. I can get you all the information that we have to date. I think I should have most of it, but if you don't, we can get you any,
Of the diagram.
yeah.
We just want people to
Send it.
understand the scope and actually what's going to be accomplished with this.
Okay.
So gladly, we can sit down and then really it would be after that meeting, the two-step process would be hold a meeting with VHB, a joint meeting, have the select board make a motion to either approve or not approve to place on the warrant. And then at that same meeting, have the finance committee vote to approve or not approve, supporting the project. Ultimately, you guys decide if it's placed on. So,
Well, we're not gonna vote on that one yet then.
right.
Okay.
I was placing it here just in case, because
No, that's fine.
it's your guys' decision. So the other one is
Truck.
the truck. So the one thing I will say with the truck and is that there was some discussion of whether or not this wanted to be placed on, and I think I opened the wrong. Opened a different document because I included the truck.
Was the
This one has two articles, because during discussion with the finance committee and the select board, there was some discussion of which option to do as far as the truck. So one of the options is to appropriate a sum of $145,000 through borrowing. And the plan was to borrow for this truck and then the other small truck, get them on a schedule where every 5 years we buy we need 2 of each of these trucks. So every 5 years we're buying, but we're getting 10+ years out of each one as plow trucks. And then we're cycling them on. Once we get into a system, it'd basically be $50,000 that would be on the budget moving forward, obviously escalating for the cost of vehicles down the road. So if we anticipate it would grow some. The other option was whether or not to just take from available free cash the purchase of this vehicle. So one is building it into the budget similar to the cruiser, but through a borrowing, because unlike the cruisers, we're buying one every year and recycling on the 5th year. This one is basically every 5 years, but we're spreading the borrowing with notes over those 5 years, and we're just recycle the notes back
What's your
in.
preference, free cash or borrow?
I like the idea of placing it into the budget as far as a set cost going forward. Because then we can plan every year that roughly with the notes that we're doing, it'd be roughly around 50,000 and plus or minus the escalation, most likely plus of vehicles, which say is 2% or so in 5 years, it'll go up slightly, but it's going to give us more of a baseline so that the DPW on the 11th year, we're trading the truck in, getting the best trade-in value we can get in getting it. So our frontline vehicles will be years 1 through 5. Our secondary fleet will be vehicles in the range of 6 to 10.
For this truck, where does that leave free cash if we approve all the other ones?
So let me call that up.
Yeah, I can tell, I tend to agree. I think that we should have an overall fleet plan. And I agree with including it in the budget
I
and
do.
using borrowing. And my concern about free cash is I'd rather have free cash available for those things that are unforeseen.
I get that. It's just.
Maybe coming down the pike,
Yeah.
like the Larry Walk Bridge cost, for instance.
I like,
No,
And actually, this is one, Patrick, that we've talked about as far as right now, overall interest rates borrowing and that is low. And if that does change in the next couple of
I
years,
understand that.
then that.
Yeah, you can change your position based on what the current economic conditions.
So right now, this is the truck fleet schedule that basically we would take on the debt. You can see there's different colors where, but basically you can see that the trend line of a borrowing and notes would be roughly around $50,000. If I go to the free cash calculation, because we found out we couldn't quite do this the way, even after everything that we're talking about taking from free cash, we're still talking a balance of 1.5 million. So do we have capacity to buy the truck outright? Absolutely. It's whether or not do we want to get on a schedule.
I think with the truck, generally, I think that getting on schedule is a great idea of having a fleet. I'm anticipating, obviously, we're not gonna know until free cash gets certified, but my guess is it's gonna go up again this year. And my guess and my observation, obviously, is the stabilization has gone up significantly. And as a general rule, I don't want to be the bank account. But above and beyond what's prudent, be the bank account for the taxpayers' money. And I just want to be sensitive of the fact that, that future projects should be paid for with future taxpayers' money and not basically, we don't want to see it, prior select boards had a goal of 10% of free cash of a given year's budget and 10% stabilization, and we're significantly above that. So I think this is fine for this one, but over the next 12 months, I just think we should be sensitive of the fact that, with assessments going up and a lot of property selling, I think that we're generally taking in a little bit more than what we anticipate. And in doing so, let's not always bank it,
We will be in a good position going forward for like Everett Road Bridge 2 will probably be around 800 to 950,000. So if we can get a $500,000 bridge grant, we're still gonna have to figure out where the other portion is. And at that point, we're probably gonna be 2 or 3 years down the road. Depending on inflation, we might be saying, yeah, now we wanna use free cash for that.
Right.
But
Borrowing isn't the option here.
and
And
reason, because otherwise we're just,
yeah. It's always a balancing act of which one. It's nice to have the option of either purchasing outright through free cash or building it into the budget as something that should be. And really, even though I only show this out 10 years, 10 years is a long time, really it's something that can be almost continued forever. As far as the small truck fleet. And then we still have to deal with, and you can see where I have above it, one large truck. We're always going to need one larger one, and you only purchase that about once every 10 to 15 years, depending on how well you take care of it. And right now you're looking at a price tag of 220,000. That one might just be a free cash purchase because they happen so infrequently. And then you'll have things like front end loaders and other things like that. You really can't plan on the 2 Ford medium-sized trucks and 2 smaller trucks that we need. Those are the ones that we sort of say are their main fleet that I think should be just budgeted. And then the rest of those other larger capital items, we should look at as a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
okay, so we agree to do the borrowing on this issue.
Yeah, so I'm ready. Is that all of them, or do we have more?
Nope, that was it. That's just the 3 of them. And the one that we're gonna hold off on the intersection till the joint meeting.
Right.
Intersection, I think we vote to move these forward on the warrant.
I'll
I
second,
make a motion.
As discussed,
What?
as discussed.
As discussed. Yeah.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any comments from the public? Seeing none, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that one.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.